All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Bill, and everybody else.
Here we are, episode number 354.
Jeez.
354. We're chugging along there, Peter. Chugging along.
It's like a routine. It's like breathing, Bill. Just another breath.
Yeah, there you go.
Another breath in eternity.
Hard to believe we can find so much to talk about in 354 podcasts, but we keep doing it. So there you go.
Yeah, well, there's always tomorrow. And I mean, we can get real specific about what's happening like lately, but we won't because this is more of a general, this will last for quite a while. But there's always something we can come up with. Oh, yeah.
Yep. All right. So today's title of the podcast is The Art of Negotiating. How to get extraordinary real estate profits easily.
Good.
So here's a description. Attention, creative real estate investors.
Attention.
Are you tired of settling for low or average profits in your deals or no deals? Look no further than this episode to change that. Today, we will cover how you can master the art of negotiating extraordinary profitable deals. What you will soon realize today is why settle for any old deal when you are working? Why not hit a home run every time so you can get gargantuan results and work way less? Whether you are a seasoned investor looking to take your skills to the next level or a rookie just starting out, the art of negotiations, how to get extraordinary creative real estate profits easily, is a must listen to. No more accepting average deals. Our real world experience will provide you with insights and tips you need to approach with confidence and achieve these extraordinary profits. You will soon see this single podcast advice will help you overcome the common obstacles and pitfalls that often derail about 92% of all real estate entrepreneurs when negotiating deals. Listen now and start achieving the profits you deserve. I was conservative with the 92%, okay?
Well, I was impressed that it was such a specific number. Like you really did some homework. We're like, at 90%, just half of the whole damn thing, all of them. 92 looked like he had some.
I did. I actually did some math.
How do you even figure something like that out? Really?
Just from my coaching clients, and like I always talk about, I have my coaching group, and I coach with another guy, and then I have Creative REI Replay. So there's different groups and lots of people.
Okay.
I mean, technically, I guess it's about 100 people a week that or in the coaching groups that I usually help or talk to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do our housekeeping first. So first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you are a regular, yes, I am in a different room. I am on sort of a sabbatical down in Florida with my wife. I was on vacation for a little while in South Carolina, and then we came to Florida. So anyway, so that's why the room is different. But more importantly, if you have questions, which I noticed that JR just did, JR, you're going to have to put in a support ticket for that, buddy, because he's asking what allows a seller properly makes a sale. I'm not even sure what he's talking about. He's talking about foreclosure. So in any event, if you have, we record this every Thursday morning at around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We stream it then, and then it gets syndicated on Monday onto the podcast platforms. So if you do have questions, you can come to Flipping Houses for Rookies on either Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. I try to stick to the topic of what I'm talking about, because I don't like to get derailed, because the podcast is written for the amount of time that we have, and I want to make sure that we don't get distracted. So if you have a question, you can go to our little mastermind group on WhatsApp Messenger, and that is Let's Talk Real Estate. So if you go to WhatsApp Messenger, you can go to Let's Talk Real Estate, or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and send me a support ticket. It comes to me directly, or Peter, if you have a question for either one of us, just go to Flipping Houses for Rookie, top right hand side. There's a support ticket, and of course, make sure you subscribe and you like us or dislike us or whatever you got to do. I was on there the other day, Peter. Remind me at the end of the call. I want to tell you about some of our. I was on Apple, on iTunes. We got a lot of reviews there, so we're doing good. So,
all right, good.
All right, so here we go. Here is the podcast. So, imagine this, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
After much work, you have finally found a seller willing to hear your creative offers.
Mm-hmm.
And you think this could be that motivated seller we all talk about all the time.
Yep.
But you're worried about the seller's negotiating challenges they give you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're worried about how you're going to deal with that encounter.
What am I going to say if?
Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to go off on this tangent, but remember when I first started training you, I told you if there was 10 things, which is an arbitrary number, if there's 10 things to do, you're going to go through one or two the first time, the deal will blow up. And the next time you go through, maybe you'll get up to 3 or 4 or 5, right? And you'll have to cycle through a few times to get used to all those different challenges.
Yeah.
Right. So at this particular point, we're kind of a quarter of the way up there, because at this podcast episode, we're talking about you have kind of figured out how to get some leads. You sort of figured out how to text them or communicate with them or get them to call you, however your marketing's working. And you've even talked to people on the phones. And you feel comfortable with some of your scripts. And now you're kind of like into, so technically in our system, you went through the find the leads, right? Communicate to them by text, which is, are you willing to talk about a sale of your house? And then you get on an opening call, and the opening call kind of pre-screens them. And now we're kind of like into making the deal, like, honing in on the numbers, right? Which is the negotiating part. So that's what I'm talking about. You've gone through all this work, and you got to this point where you want to talk about the numbers.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like anything, you're not going to punt a field goal the first time you try. You're not going to hit the golf ball very straight the first time you try. So you just keep working step by step, and you get a little further. So the game has to be, will I make money in this first deal, or can I at least get into the next step and learn how this works? And then you'll get all the way through and you'll have one. But you got to learn the ropes.
So before I go any further, I just want to set the precedence of today's call. I didn't write this down, but I thought about this when we were talking before. So I want to set the precedence. What actually makes gargantuan deals? See, that's an important thing to cover. I didn't even write it in my podcast because I should have thought about that. What makes a gargantuan deal?
Yeah.
What makes a gargantuan deal is the seller feels comfortable, and they feel like they're getting more than they think they can get anywhere else. Right? So when you're firm, and you've heard me say this, and I don't have time to cover this a lot. Maybe we'll circle around back in another podcast. But the most important words that I say in any negotiating atmosphere is this. Ready? Well, this is how my program works. Or this is what I can do for you. those set the precedent of your which I'm going to cover today. We're going to cover why this is important. But I want to just make this really, really, really simple clear.
Mm-hmm.
What makes gargantuan profits is your mindset. Because think of it this way: if you do a deal, the work doesn't change. So you could do a deal to make $5,000, or you can make a deal for $50,000, or you can make a deal for $500,000,
Mm-hmm.
and the work doesn't change.
That's right.
The only thing that changes is your mindset. And I'm going to just throw this term out there, just as a loose term, but I don't want it to be thought of as simple, because this is what makes gargantuan deals. This is how you get gargantuan deals. It's your acceptance level. What are you willing to accept as a deal? Now, I know this for a fact because I obviously, I'll tell people in my coaching group, I'll tell you here, there's a lot of times like I teach slot deals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. The reason why is because I don't want to make $5,000. My deals are $50,000. Now, if one fell on my lap and like I'm working with you and you wanted to do it, then we'll do it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna, and I'm not making light of a slot deal. In the beginning, that's all you should do. A slot deal is a sandwich lease option transfer. It's kind of like wholesaling lease options. If you've never done a deal, it's a way to get started. It's a way to make 5 or 10 grand. It's a way to just get going and get used to things.
Right, but also you always have the scale of weighing how much am I making and how much time I'm going to put into it. Right. Would you spend a month to make $5,000?
No.
Hell yeah, I would. I would. And I don't mean a month solid. I mean a month, a few minutes here, an hour there, maybe total of 5-10 hours. I would. Right. But if I had a deal that comes along for 50, I would say, forget it. I'm all going over there.
Right.
It just depends, And if you're new at this and haven't made any money, put $5,000 in your account so you can pay for some marketing and do more. Okay, but that's not Bill. That's not you.
We set the precedence now. That's exactly right. So now let's go into the podcast because I'm going to get into all of this stuff right now. But I wanted to set the precedent. This is not some magic formula. This is not. It's you. It's your mindset and your acceptance level on what you want. That's what makes gargantuan deals. Now, the last thing I want to say on this, and I'm spending way too much time on this, the last thing I want to say on this is like the best way to describe this is when you're selling a house and you get anxious. Nobody's responding, but it's a week in, and the most amount of money you have for down payment is money is $5,000, and you're looking for 20.
Yeah,
you have to be willing to wait because the 20 will come. It's your acceptance level. So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so that's an example. Okay. Here's the biggest thing that I find prior to some training. Ron LeGrand states it the best. You think education's expensive. Try ignorance. And this is exactly what that means. Prior to any kind of negotiating training or any kind of conversation like we're having today, most people are guessing at how much they would give to their seller. They're guessing.
Yeah, they're playing it by ear and bouncing off. The way I look at it, I think I know where you're going. The way I look at it is like we have our parameters, what we're willing to do. It's like we draw a line in the sand. I'm not going past this. That isn't good. And then I remember sitting in a house with you, and the seller's going, well, I need this, I need that, I want this, I want that. And we're thinking, can we do that for the guy to get the sale? And it was like, no, we do this. Like, this is our program, right? This is our program. This is what we do. This is our game, play our game, which is, considering you too. So you make money and we take care of you. But we're not playing your game. We're playing our game.
Right.
So if not, see you later. And I remember almost bending like to try to help the guy get a deal, but it wasn't right. It didn't fit what we do. We drew the line.
Yeah. By the way, the guy was really motivated and willing to let us make payments, but there was work that needed to be done in the house, and we couldn't swing the payments what we had to pay and the work, and we walked away. Anyways, we're going to get to that in a minute. You're walking right into where we're going. So,
Good. Well, good. We're tracking.
yeah, excuse me. So the reason why you don't know what to offer is because you're extremely nervous, right? About whether it's a good deal or not, right? You're on kind of this roller coaster ride, trying to control the commotion of the emotions,
Mm.
right? So today I'd like to elaborate on actually podcast number 353, where we talked about ROI, which is rate of rate of
Well,
return, right?
yeah. I mean, strictly, it's return on investment, but it's your
Right.
rate of return. It's how much you're
Yeah.
getting back. Yeah.
So in that podcast, which was called "How to Evaluate and Execute Creative Real Estate Deals from Gargantuan Profits," we're going to kind of elaborate because we talked about some of this stuff in that podcast, and I decided to do this podcast, which was
Mm-hmm.
it was 353. So it was a podcast right before this. So if you haven't listened to podcast 353, you might want to go listen to that because they're kind of they work together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be cool with everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So let's start off with the greatest negotiating secret ever. Okay, and we're going to elaborate on this, and I mean that it's almost an obvious secret. In fact, one of the biggest problems I have is that when I talk like I talk today, which is very, very frank, and it's like, I mean, I write these podcasts I just sit down at a desk with a yellow pad and a pencil, and I write them.
Yeah.
You know, they just come out of my head. So it's like, you know, it's me putting a microphone or a magnifying glass on my own self and our deals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here it is. This is extremely important and is never done, and it's missed, which is why people randomly give offers.
Mm.
You have to route your mission or purpose in the world of the other side.
Mm.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
you're planting your mission and your purpose in the seller's mind and
Mm-hmm.
in negotiating. Now, this is very cleverly done, so I'm going to explain this, right? So what does this mean?
Mm.
Right? First, what's that?
Like an example. Go ahead. Just
So first, it does not mean having a mission or purpose of I want to make $1 million
Mm.
or
Mm.
I want to get rich so I can quit my job.
Mm.
Even I want to retire early so I can go do what I really love to do. If you notice, these are all self-directed, which means the individual with the mission or purpose loses control.
You know, as you said those things, I thought to myself, if that's your idea of what your mission is, tell that to the seller and see how much he likes that idea. Oh, good.
Right.
I'll do that for you. Hell no. Those are things that would not fly at all. So obviously we need the flip side of that. And that's your point, the flip side of something.
And that's the next thing that I'm going to say is
Yeah.
you need to get your seller to agree with your purpose as part of the negotiating. So are they going to want to agree to making you a millionaire off of their house?
Hey, Bill, I think one.
Or get rich to quit their job because they're selling you their house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they want us to retire early. I think once or twice in my life, as any seller said to me, and look, you got to make your money too.
Yeah.
Not rich. He was even thinking, I need to get something out of this, so I do it.
Right.
Twice in my life. They're not thinking of us. No.
So we're going to cover that next. But why would a seller want that? Why would they want to sell you their house so you could get rich or retire early or go do something? Why would they want to do that? Now, I will tell you there's a flip side to this.
Mm-hmm.
What I do very, very quickly in my negotiating is I tell the seller where I'm making my money because they want to know. So
Right.
it's this fine line. I mean, I'm going to explain this to you in a minute on how you do this, but
Mhm.
most sellers, if they don't know where you're making money, they think the shoe is going to drop somewhere else and they back out of the deal. They think there's like a hidden standard or a hidden uh, profit line somewhere, that they don't know about, and they're getting taken advantage of. Right.
Exactly. That's a really, really good point. Because I have people say, "Well, how do you make your money then?"
Right.
Good.
So it's a mistake to confuse your mission and purpose for money and power.
Mm.
Your mission and purpose should not be money and power. It leaves the other side wondering, what are you bringing to the table to benefit them?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So the secret is this: your mission and purpose in negotiating is your continuing task and responsibility. In other words, what you're going to do,
Mhm.
and your long term aim, what you're going to be, with both always grounded in the world of the other party.
Mm.
Let me say that again, okay? Because this is very profound. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, this is like an advanced podcast. I'm actually making this podcast for some of my coaching clients. I'm going to insist they go listen to this podcast,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, the secret, your mission and purpose in negotiating is your continuing task and responsibility. In other words, what you're going to do,
Mhm.
and your long term aim, what you're going to be when it's all over, with both always grounded in the world of the other party.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jim Camp, for teaching me that, because that's where I got that from.
Cool.
Okay, so let's just take a second here and explain this.
Mhm.
My mission. You're the seller.
Yep.
Peter, here's what I do. What I do is I help buyers that normally couldn't buy a house get into a house.
Hmm.
And I help someone like you to sell a house who may or may not be able to sell it and get what you want.
Mhm.
So my job is to make sure everybody gets what they want and they're happy.
Cool.
So how is the seller going to respond to that? Now, I'm going to tell you,
Mm.
I was asking you, it was a rhetorical question. I'm sorry. I know I'm doing a lot of talking this morning, but here's what happens about 40% of the time.
Mhm.
Well, I like that idea. I'd like to be able to have somebody do that. I'd like to be able to help somebody do that. I'd like to be able to help somebody. And almost 40 something percent of the time, I hear this. When I bought this house, I bought it on a rent to own.
No way.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
That often?
Or yeah,
Wow.
or I'll hear, and this is especially out in Ohio because I buy in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, especially in Ohio. Or I'll hear, when I was a young man, when I first got married, we bought a rent. That's how I got started.
Huh.
I hear that mostly. Actually, let me rephrase that. I want to rephrase what I'm saying. When we're calling the out of area owner list, because it has a lot of landlords in there.
Yeah.
I don't hear that on the for sale by owner list or the expired listings. I don't hear
Okay.
that there. I hear it
Okay.
on the out of area owner list when we're talking to those people. So let me specify. It's 30 or 40%. I think it's 40%. I hear that a lot.
Cool.
Like that's how I got started.
Hmm.
On rent to own. So when I tell them my purpose, that's actually like planting the purpose of the sale into the deal. So it's not just for me to make money.
Yeah. That's what I noticed in it. It wasn't like what my mission is, me.
Right.
The thing of what's in it for me.
Right.
It sounds
Yeah.
to me like what's in it for you.
Yeah, that's a radio station, WIFM, IIFM. What's in it for me?
I listen to WIFU. I know
IFU, listen to you.
No. Oh, wait a minute.
Don't
Back
say
up.
that too fast.
Wait a minute. Emma, edit that part out. Wait a minute. WIFY.
Yeah,
What's
there
in
you
it
go.
for you? Okay, I got it straight that time.
Now, again, I could do a whole podcast on this, but I'm not going to. So don't take what I'm about to tell you very lightly. In fact, I beg you, I stand here with my hands crossed, clapped together on my knees, and I beg you to go test this today. People, human beings, have a huge help button. Some people have a squashed help button. The idea of them helping someone would crush them. Those are usually, not always, usually antisocial people, and they're bad guys. They have evil intentions. And the way you can gauge whether or not somebody is a social personality or has social characteristics is by their help button. Are they willing to help or not?
Yeah.
So we were talking about money motivated. Don't be money motivated. What you'll notice is if you just, you could just point blank say to your your college mate or your working friend or your spouse, what do you think of help? And they'll be, what do you mean? Well, do you think it's good or do you think it's bad? Do you think it can be? The key question is, do you think help is possible? And you will find the root of that person's life, like how they live life, trying to help others or not.
You want to hear a funny, very short, true story? My wife was helping somebody once, and she actually do some tutoring, help somebody learn something they were stuck on in school, and asked, "Can I help you with this?" And they go, "Oh, help!" And you can see reaction. Well, how do you feel about help? Well, every time I ask my mother for help, she says she's going to help me, and she would do the whole thing for me, and I would never get to do anything. And so help didn't help me at all. She just did it, and I still didn't learn how to do it. Help sucks. And that was just, that wasn't even horrible, like beating or anything. Right. But help was a big failure to this person. It doesn't work. Don't do it for me.
And what you just said is important. A lot of people have failed help.
Yeah.
And it has to be recovered. Anyways, that's another story. All I'm saying is keep that in the back of your mind, right? So lastly, on this point of your mission and purpose must be written out carefully, because what we think and what's in the physical universe doesn't always match. So you want it two-dimensionally written out, like on a piece of paper, not typed on your computer. Please take my word for this. Write it physically with a pen and pencil. Matter of fact, write it 10 times so you remember it, right?
Yeah.
Then every decision, every deal, every action you take, you now have something to measure it up against.
Yeah.
Is this decision, is this action, is this going to get me closer to my purpose or add to my purpose? Or is it going to take away from my purpose?
Yeah.
Now, one of my reasons for doing real estate is to retire. So my decision making is all about cash flow and working less, right? And it's not that I want to work less. It's because I have 2 other businesses, right? And I want to run those businesses well. And I want to do things like what I'm doing right now is take a month off.
Yep.
I'm still working, but I have it under control. I can work a couple hours a day and still keep my income going.
Yeah, you're not stuck in an office.
No. So one of the things that I have as a mission is the more people I can get to pay me, the better off I am. So my thing is all about cash flow. So when I'm making my deals, I'm liable to take a skinny equity, or less money down, as money now. Because I want the cash flow. And because of that, I've taken my cash flow on a deal from $300 or $400, thinking that was good, and my average I think is $900 now.
That's crazy.
It's like I have a couple that are $1,100, $1,200. I've got one bill. I got a 2-family house that does $1,600 a month. on a 2-family house.
And that's profit, you're saying?
Yeah. It's above and beyond all my bills.
Which is really good because people talk about getting $200 a door, $300 a door. You need a big multifamily to get that otherwise, and you're getting that out of a single or 2-family. That is very good.
Right. So my job when I'm talking to you on this podcast is to give you my 30 years experience, because it took me a long time to realize this on how objectively to accept deals. Right? When I find them. And notice I said accept deals, because my mindset is deals fall on my lap and I accept them. I do not beg for deals.
Yeah.
I do not try to convert people. That's a big mistake. People think that, oh yeah, that I have all this negotiating secret words and I'm going to subliminally, whisper in their ear like I'm a horse whisperer or a dog whisperer, and I'm going to get the horse or dog to do what I want them to do. Deals don't work that way. Deals work with people liking you. And more importantly than that, they have to have some affinity. They have affinity for the deal and the way you are treating them.
Yeah.
That's how you make deals. They have to like the deal and like how you're treating them. Right? All right. Next greatest negotiating tool is a natural law that has made me millions. And I could tell you this is not just in houses, because I used to buy and sell 75 cars a month myself, wholesale. Imagine that. I would buy a car from a brand new car dealership.
Right.
They wanted the most amount of money for the car, and then I would have to sell it to another dealer that wanted to pay the least amount of money for the car.
Oh, dealer to dealer.
Yeah.
Oh,
75 times a month. Okay. So here it is. Here is the law. I didn't make this up. I just know it. Ready? This is worth the whole podcast. And I'm going to skim over and come back to it.
Okay.
The person who wants it the least has the most power.
Okay.
The person who wants it the least has the most power. Now, this natural law kicks off several other negotiating tools and tips. So let's cover them and come back to this one.
Yeah, it almost sounds backwards, but it's not.
Yeah, I'm going to cover it in a minute. So number one tool or tip, I don't know what else to call them, right? Do not beg for deals. That means stick with our creative real estate rules. Yeah. There's only 2, and here they are. The first, the seller must be willing to accept monthly payments until we can pay them off. In return, we will give them top dollar.
Yep.
2, if the seller wants everything now, in other words, all their money now, they have to give us a discount, and it has to be significant enough from market value so we can do a deal.
Yep.
Right? AKA do not, and I'm pointing my finger at you, do not buy a deal and the day you close, not have equity. You have to have equity in the deal. Unless, of course, you're doing a sandwich lease option transfer, which is wholesaling lease options. You're not keeping the deal. You're just controlling the paperwork and making quick cash. Then it's okay. But in that case, you're creating the equity. You're not getting equity. You're creating it for yourself. But you should not, which is the reason why I created the chart that we have, which we don't talk about too much anymore because I don't promote it. But if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, all the way down on the bottom of the page, it says deal making 101 or something like that. And all 7 of my deal structures are there, and it shows you how to use them. They are 15, 20-minute videos. And I used to sell it for a few $100s, and now I just give it away because it is the way you can do these deals. It is creative real estate in a box. Everything you need to know about creative real estate is in those 7 videos or 9 videos, right? On how you can do deals.
Yep.
Now, here's the most important part. And you've heard this before. Some of the best deals you do are the ones that you don't do.
Yeah.
If you don't have one of the 2 things I just talked about, which is willingness to take monthly payments till you get paid off, or a significant discount so you can have equity or cash flow,
Yeah.
you walk away. It's not a deal. And the most significant problem in your training is the ability to quickly notice a deal or not. You're trying to convert non-deals or suspects into deals or prospects. And you're wasting your time. You have spent, and I don't mean you, Peter, I'm talking to the listeners, have spent way too much time studying how you can come up with magic words and special things to say and things to do so that you can convert a seller. Or most important, you might have studied for 8 years or 3 years or 6 months or bought 5 courses so that you can handle your seller on one 60-minute or 45-minute phone call. Just in case they have a question, they ask and you don't know it. You want to make sure you have the answer so you look smart.
You know what I think is the funniest thing? When students study how to do deals, like, oh, this should be a subject to, I'll take over the mortgage, or gee, this would be a slot deal, or hey, this is a perfect owner financing deal. And think just because the numbers work on a piece of paper, the seller's going to go along and say, yes, you're correct. You can have the house because you did the right numbers. The guy doesn't care what deal works. He just
and we're running into that right now with coaching, because I know you're in the coaching calls with me every week. I've actually fired 2 coaching clients in the last couple months because I considered them to be not coachable. And how I came to that conclusion is because they actually think that somebody's going to text them, oh, yeah, I want to sell my house subject to, here are the numbers. Can we do the paperwork?
Yeah.
And they consider that a lead.
Yeah.
So they're looking for the low-hanging fruit, but you can't do that. You cannot make deals on texting. Texting is meant to do one thing and only one thing. Actually, 2 things. Do you have a house for sale, and do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
That's all texting does. Doesn't do anything else. And oh yeah, by the way, what is the change that we just made recently, Peter, about texting? I know we've made a few. So how do you respond to people? What do you tell them?
Oh, I have an offer for you.
Exactly. So what's your offer? Let's talk. I have a couple. Let's talk about it. Or house isn't for sale. So I have an offer for you. You don't want to hear it? Or my realtor, talk to my realtor. Oh, so you don't want me to give you the offer? You want me to give it to the realtor? Right? It's all based on the offer because sellers don't want to sell. And that sounds counterintuitive, but they don't want to sell. What happens if they got a $200,000 house and you want to offer them $100,000? They don't want to waste your time. They don't want to talk to you. They're trying to weed you out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Oh, you're an investor. You just want to lowball me,
right?
And and that's why we have in our vocabulary words like top dollar, because we can, if they do a terms deal, we'll give them more than a realtor.
Right. So what they want is an offer. That's the first step. You have to do it in sequence. So you're constantly talking about the offer or offers you can give them. Now, I used to say offers like they can have multiple choice, but I stopped doing that because it's a what is the word I want to say? It's a gradient. Like I'll do one offer. I'll do my cash offer first, 50 cents on a dollar.
Yeah.
And get it out of the way. And then I'll move up to the next one, and then I'll move up to another one. I usually try to give them 3.
Yep.
Okay. So this brings us to the next rule or tool or tip or whatever you want to call it. And I'm telling you, I've coached a lot of people, and these things I'm telling you is years and hundreds, thousands of hours for me to learn, thousands and thousands of hours to learn. And I'm just spitting them out like they're so simple.
Mm.
Do not ignore what I'm telling you guys. Please do not. You should listen to this a couple times. I would even try to write this stuff down. I don't know. I'm telling you, this is how you make gargantuan deals. Neediness. Neediness. If you have neediness, like you need to have a deal and you're like under the gun and you need to get money because you're under the crunch, that'll kill every single deal. It's like having bad breath and you don't know it. Right? Imagine being in a used car lot looking to buy a car. Because yours is broken, you got dropped off. Yours is broken, you got dropped off to buy the car, right?
Yeah.
And the salesperson keeps steering you away from what you really want or what you came in to get. And you soon realize he doesn't care about you, and he's only steering you to the car that will make him a better commission. How does that make you feel? Think about that. How does that make you feel? If your mission and purpose does not benefit the seller, the buyer, and your private lender, if you're using one, plus you and your family, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it for the wrong reason and cannot make gargantuan profits.
Yep.
You're definitely not. Oh, I'm sorry. And if you're doing it this way, you're definitely starving for deals.
Yeah.
Never mind gargantuan profitable ones. You're money motivated and you come off that way. And your seller, your buyer, and your lender know that you're only money motivated. So the only way they're going to do business with you is if you give them so much money they can't resist it, they'll put up with you to do the deal. Or they're so desperate to sell the house, they'll do it. But nowadays, those desperate people, there's too many of us. So those desperate people are like a needle in a haystack. It's not like 5 years ago, Peter, where we could find a motivated seller like out of 20 phone calls.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's 200.
Yep.
Because there's too many of us people calling, too many investors calling them. Right? Here's what happens when you have neediness and you need to do a deal. First of all, you're not going to use the magic formula money now, money monthly, money later, which shows all aspects of the deal so you can make a conscious decision of all the numbers, not just one. Like you need money now, so all you're thinking about is the 10 grand you can get for the deposit money. And I know this from experience. You do the deal because you need the money, and then in a year from now, you're stuck with that property, making $100 a month, thinking, and it's a problem because when it starts bad, it stays bad, right? And that, and you're like every month you're like sending a plumber, and you're doing this and you're doing that because it's just a freaking nightmare. You'll hate yourself, right? These could damage you. They could damage your buyer, they could damage your seller, and damage your private lender. They are not worth doing. So get off of neediness. Which brings us to the next one, which is number 3. How am I doing so far, right?
Yeah. Well, it's real, and these are things that you can't get out the gate when you really get someone on the phone if you don't have these things understood.
It's your mindset and your acceptance level. That's what I'm talking about now. That's what controls your universe. That's what controls your world.
Yeah.
The amount of money you have, I've told you in the past, the easiest way for me to figure out how somebody's mind works is to walk into their bedroom. Is it clean and neat or is it a mess?
Yeah.
If it's a mess, their thinking is dispersed and they don't have clean, simple thoughts that stay around long enough for them to do anything about it. Or if it's nice and neat. Somebody wrote a book, I forgot what, Make Your Bed in the Morning. It was a military guy.
Yeah, military. Yeah, right.
And it was just about that. Right?
Yeah. Cars, your car's the same way too.
Yeah.
Look in your car.
All right. So next, your vision. Number 3, your vision.
Mm.
Vision drives decision. The people on the other side are negotiating, and this was to your point earlier, are negotiating for their benefit,
Hmm.
not yours.
Yeah.
This is self-evident, but often overlooked. They're asking for $200,000 for a house that's worth 160, and they don't care that where you're going to get the money. Have no concept that if it doesn't comp or the bank doesn't see the value in it, they're not going to give you the money.
Mm.
They don't have that concept, right? Which is why we're rooting our mission and purpose in the other side. Mission and purpose creates, guides, and enhances vision. The vision of the other side drives the effective decision making that leads to agreements. So, what the seller thinks leads to decisions and making agreements. So, the guy says, "Oh, I want a $200,000." It could be as simple as, "Well, have you had it appraised?" Well, it would start off with, "Where did you get that number?"
Mm-hmm.
Have you had it appraised?
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a buyer try to go get a bank loan with that?
Yeah. Have you had any offers yet?
Right. So we're going to get to this in a minute, but the point is that their vision is, I want 200,000 because of whatever they're signing. You know, they're money motivated. Whatever they're trying. Well, I need 200,000 because I want to make $50,000 because I want to pay off my daughter's college tuition.
That's nice.
They're money motivated. They're doing all the things I'm telling you not to do.
Yeah, well, the mistake can be on our side, could be on their side too, huh?
But my point is I wanted to finish that statement, that they're doing all the things I'm telling you not to do, and you don't like it. So if you do it to them, how are they going to like it?
Yeah.
Right? Vision drives everything you do. Everything you do comes from a vision. The human mind uses vision to evaluate, uses mental image pictures to evaluate and computate. Computate means add up and come with a solution for everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No vision, no action.
Mm.
No vision, no decision. No vision, no agreement.
Mm.
This is why storytelling is so powerful since the dawn of man. Until we started writing things down, that's how we taught our youngins with stories.
Pictures on cave walls, huh?
That's how I teach you guys. I tell you, and you've heard me with my coaching clients. They got this deal, and I'll be fumbling around. All of a sudden, I'll just stop. I do this way too often because I don't do it early enough. And I'll think, well, you know what? I don't know what you should do, but here's what I would do if I was you.
Yeah.
And then I would tell you a story. One time I had a house and we and that's the reason why I would make this decision.
Yeah.
Right? Last thing on vision. A vision of what? So here's what happens. And Peter, you can attest to this because you've been in a lot of houses with me.
Mm-hmm.
One, you want to get the current or future problem to be served.
Yep.
People don't always clearly see their problems.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we did a podcast on this a while ago. I should have looked it up, but realize this. We always see the solutions before we see the problems. The solutions have details, the problems don't. They're just there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going to help your seller in a conversation sort out their problems. So they're nice and clear and labeled and they have a vision of their own problem. Now, you don't need to mush their face in it. You just need to help them work it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I owe taxes. I bought a property one time, was worth $100,000 or $90,000, and the lady owed $6,000 in taxes or $8,000 in taxes.
Okay.
She owned it free and clear. And so I was like, you realize that we have this solution. Like, you could get a finance, you could refinance, you could do this, you could do that. You keep the house, right?
Yeah, that's not a lot of money. 6,000. Like, I'll write you a check, lady.
Maybe it was more. Maybe it was 30,000. I don't remember. It was a big number comparatively, but she had plenty of equity. She owned the house. It was $100,000 house, and she owned the house, right?
Yeah.
So we actually went down that route. I said to her, "I'm not going to buy the house. I'm going to help you get a loan." And it lasted about 5 days, and she got frustrated. She's like, "I don't want to do this. Just you. What'd you say? You would pay 38,000. I'll take the 38,000."
Huh.
But I had to help her go through that. And then the decision was easy because she got the vision of what she had to do for the loan, and she got details.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I don't want to divert, which I have done way too much already today. But if you want confidence, if you think that I have confidence and you want confidence like me when talking to sellers, I'm going to tell you the way to do it. And I know this because in Creative REI Reply, which is our software system, creativereireply.com, we put checklists in there for the deals. And I know because I see my students there doing it. So when they go through the checklist, so if they close somebody on a subject to deal, which is taking over the mortgage payments and getting the deed in their name, right? Subject to the underlying mortgage that's in place already, they take the checklist and they just tell the seller, this is what we have to do. And they tell them the next 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
That shows confidence. So confidence is knowing and giving your seller details of what's going to happen. It's actually the vision, right? All right. So what a vision of what? Let's go back. A vision of what? So the current or future problems to be solved.
Right.
So you want to make them clear. And then 2, you have to have a visual solution with details.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's confrontable and believable. Right? It has to be believable. Oh, well, I'm gonna go talk to the mayor and I'm gonna get him to make your taxes exempt.
Yay!
Like, that's not believable, right?
Well, I know we're getting closer. If you're watching the news, that's coming next.
Yeah, exactly.
No, seriously, they just talked about forgiving, medical
bills. Yeah, I saw
right.
that.
So that's coming next.
All right. So in every negotiation, the vision of the problem and solution clearly laid out is what brings the negotiation to agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, it stops the treasure hunt for everyone involved.
Mm.
And is exactly where our gargantuan profits are made, right in this sweet spot.
Yeah.
By the way, it has to be the seller's problem and the seller's solution, not yours. Remember, our mission is to help them. Our mission has to be believed by them, that it's for them and in it for them. Now, you don't want to fake this. This is not a passive aggressive, like pretending and acting like you care when you really don't. This has to be sincere, right? Just like neediness, it leaks through the deal. It sifts through the air, and they feel it.
That's right.
They have to feel like you're sincere when you with your purpose and your aims. Which brings me to number 4. There's a crucial difference between seeing and understanding. And seeing must come first. The cleaner you can see, the better you can understand in a rational way. This is why you ask questions, which I'm going to come back to that in a minute. This is why you ask questions in a deal, because you need to see the problems or the details before you can understand it. You need the whole picture before you can understand it.
Yeah.
Like my sister will say, my mother told me this, that, and the other thing, and make it sound like my mother's being psychotic.
Oh,
So if I made a decision just on that, then I may join forces with my sister and be, you know, not in agreement with something my mother's doing. But yet when I talk, if I do it the way I do it, I talk to my mother, and my mother's like, no, that's not what I said, or well, she said this, and I was just responding to that, and I get the other side of the story.
mm,
Now all of a sudden I can understand because I can see the whole thing.
yeah.
Right. So how do you do all this? The art and science of asking great questions
Hmm.
so you fully understand. Aristotle, right?
Oh, is that right?
Questions, they call it the aristocratic way. Right?
I think it's something else.
Is it?
I, I think it's Aristotelian.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Anyways,
Questions are the
questions.
key. The questions are the key way you can peel the onion and find out what's really going on with the other side,
Mm-hmm.
and really getting to the core of their problems and the details you need for the vision. Because this works both ways. Not only does the seller need a vision, but you need a vision to make
Mm-hmm.
decisions on whether you're going to do this deal or not. You need a vision, and they need a
Oh,
vision.
isn't that like our program?
Yeah.
In a way, like this is what we do, and you have to see that and hang on to that. Don't get pulled off your own platform.
So when you do this, you get to the core of the real problems, and you build their visions of those problems and your solutions. The other party's answers to your questions build the vision that they need in order to make good, comfortable, effective decisions that drives negotiation and agreements. Now, here's a good guide.
Mm-hmm.
Who, what, when, where, why, how, and which are the best to use. You should write those down. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and which. WHICH. Which, like which bank said that.
Yeah.
Are the best and most famous interrogatives and the safest questions in negotiating.
Mm.
So many people want to know my magic words. Really, it's like, well, who told you that? Where did you get that appraisal?
Mm-hmm.
Who told you that the counter's worth $3,000?
Mm-hmm.
What would it be like if you didn't sell the house?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Be simple, yet creative and precise when asking these questions. Think of it backwards. Figure out what type of answer you want first, then craft the question to pinpoint the answer or the area you want to answer the deal.
Mm-hmm.
You want to answer a need. Figure out what area you need to answer you need.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you a classic question. I say this all the time. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today?
Mm-hmm.
You want to know if you have a deal. What would have to happen for me to buy your house today?
Yeah.
Or here's another one. Peter, how much are you asking for the house?
Mm.
Where did you get that number? How did you envision this closing going?
Mm-hmm.
So all these questions that I've given you guys over the year come from these interrogatives. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and which.
Hmm.
So write those down. Put them in front of you. And when you're talking to somebody, just arbitrarily start asking why, where, how, which one. And you'll be just as good as the questions as me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. Now, before we end, let's finish off with The person who wants it the least has the most power.
Yeah.
If you do as I explained today, you will be able to pierce, that means break or get through, your seller's social veneer. Walking down the street, hey Pete, how are you? Fine, how are you? People don't say that. Few people say that. Usually it's, how are you, Pete? I'm good. It's a social mechanism. It's a social response. You're not really responding to them because you know that they don't really care. I'm not asking Peter if I'm walking down the street and I say, "Hey Peter, how are you?" He knows that I don't really care. It's just a social thing.
Bill, I had somebody walk in my house. I said, hi. Believe it or not, I said, hi. They went, good. How are you?
Yeah.
And it was a very smart person too. Like, good. How are you? Like, I didn't know. I just said hi.
It's just
It's
like
an
a circuit.
automatic.
It's just like
Yeah.
a circuit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you need to break that social veneer and find out not their, like, they go to their party mode. They go to a party and they're being polite and nice, so they're liked.
Mhm.
People do that so they're liked. You need to get through that. And these
Yeah.
questions of these questions of who, what, where, when, why, how, which are the way you're going to get through that.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to find out how they really feel, because that's what you need. You need to really get the emotions to find out how they really feel. But I warn you, try not to disclose all your cards or offer until you feel you have a clear vision of what your seller's trying to do, or what their end results are, or what their problems are, and a clear vision of how your mission or purpose can help them. You need to have that two-way communication, you asking questions, them answering you, and vice versa, to be able to do this.
Yeah.
This makes huge profits if done correctly. And again, thank you, Jim Camp, for all the wisdom on this topic, because he's an amazing guy. If you just type in on Amazon, Jim Camp, I think the name of his book is No. It's a negotiating book.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, the last thing I want to say is, one of the things that I do very well is, it's called a poker face, although it's a derogatory term. I don't reveal all my cards until I feel like I've gotten the full situation in details.
Yeah,
So
but
I
that
can
makes
help.
sense. That makes sense, though. I mean, well, I said at the beginning of the podcast, the beginning student looks at the numbers and goes, "Oh, it's a slot deal. Oh, owner financing." Before talking to the person, I used to do that. I'm sure in the car, Bill would not let me show him the paperwork and the numbers till we got to the house and talked to the guy, because it would taint the deal. Like, I think it's a this deal. How the hell do we know? We haven't even talked to the guy. It's not the numbers. It's the guy. You're not. It's not paperwork. It's a guy. Anyways, so that's what you're saying. Complete opposite of how bad it can be. Thinking you know what it is before you talk to him. So what you're
Exactly.
saying makes lots of sense.
So
And waiting too till you have the whole picture.
right. Think of it this way. Yeah, because people think that our listeners right now, which is kind of interesting, because in the last 10 minutes, the most important part of the podcast, people dropped off.
Mhm.
They didn't even wait till the end of the podcast to get the best part, right?
Yeah.
Because I can see how many people are listening, right? So
Yeah.
here's the point. When I say a poker face,
Mhm.
right? Or when I'm talking about the person that wants it the least has the most amount of power, I'm
Mhm.
talking about not begging. I'm talking about saying to them, if I don't do this deal, I have other people waiting. I'm totally okay with that. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to help you with blah.
Yeah.
Or Peter almost fell over when I first did this. We get in the house and we're there and we're sitting at the table and we go through all the motion. He worked really hard to get me in the house, and within 5 minutes I say to the guy, you know what? I'm not your right guy. We're not going to buy your house.
Mm-hmm.
And it automatically just takes everything down. It shatters all their defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
That's the person with the least amount, the person who wants it the least has the most amount of power.
This may sound profound the way you're saying, but think of, you probably do this during the week. I mean, trying to get a job, trying to get a raise, trying to date somebody, all these things happen in those little instances, not just big house purchases.
Right.
So, I mean, what do you want for dinner? Like, some of the stuff happens right there. Where do you want to go to eat? Just think about it. Ask questions, see what people want.
I know we're over time. That's good, Peter. I know we're over time, but just to summarize something before we leave. If you were ill or a loved one was ill and went to a doctor, what do you want the doctor to do? Talk to you and find out what your real problem is, or make a quick decision and misdiagnose? We've heard those stories where people have amputated the wrong limb, taken out the wrong organ, right? Operations that are mistakes. We call that malpractice. The reason why malpractice insurance is so expensive for doctors is because that happens more than they care to tell us. So just think of it that way. When you are sitting in a room, the white room with the table and the piece of paper on it, and you're moving around as scrunching, right? And you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and the nurse gave the blood pressure. Everybody saw you except the doctor. You're waiting for the doctor because the doctor, you want to talk to the doctor and say, I feel this and I feel that, and you want to give the doctor all the information so you could get his education for a solution. You are the doctor in this deal. You need to ask the right questions. You need to make the person feel comfortable. You have to have the right bedside manners. You have to have all that in place, because you and I both know if you go to a doctor and you don't feel good about that doctor, that automatically initiates a second opinion. Don't let your seller feel like they need a second opinion because you didn't listen to what we were telling you today and you didn't practice. And that's my summary of today's podcast. That's how you make gargantuan deals. Is you're that doctor that has a good education, you have good bedside manners, you ask the right questions, you gave the right solution, and the person just says, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Sounds right.
And that's what you got.
I didn't know I could do that. Right? I didn't know I could do that. That's great. Right? I didn't know I could. Yeah.
And by the way, like with the doctor, in most cases, it's usually a lot simpler than what you anticipated before you walked in.
Always hope it's simpler.
All right, good. So thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. Please go like us, subscribe to us, let us know what you think about us. And sometimes I'm a little bit reluctant to say that because some people don't get all the information and make quick decisions and give us a review that we really don't need, but that's okay. This podcast is more for us to help you than it is for anything else. So I'm practicing what I preach.
Hey, there's always people like that no matter what you do.
Yep. Yeah, the fact that I'm getting bad reviews means that I'm out there and I'm reaching a lot of people, and I'm good with it because we know that 2.5% of the people in this world are not exactly good people. We'll categorize them as evil. All right, good. So thank you for being with us. Make sure you like us, subscribe to us. Make sure you go in the link. What I put in the link is I put a calculator, free creative real estate negotiating calculator that you can go use, so that while you're working on all these things, you don't have to worry about the numbers. Once you get the numbers, you can put them right in there, and it automatically tells you whether you have a deal red, yellow, or green light. It's a really cool tool. Go check it out.
That fits in with what you said earlier. Go to our site and look at the bottom of the page, Coaching 101 and how to make deals. And this does it automatically, but you should know the theory, how it works. And then you can use the calculator. It'll make total sense to you then.
Yep.
Very smart stuff.
Good. So next podcast, number 355, is unique ways to avoid not paying too much for creative real estate properties. So we're going to go over the deals then. Okay, we're 9 minutes past, way over. Thank you for listening. We're over now. Have a good week.